Budget 2026 has been pitched as an engine for growth on track with Viksit Bharat. It is also India's play to counter American tariffs, targeting export growth as well as domestic manufacturing. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman unveiled some key moves to move India's growth trajectory to the next orbit. But the biggest punchback was the soaring of capital expenditure at over 12 lakh crores. Ms. Sitharaman announcing an increase of 9% in capital expenditure. Hit by US tariffs, sectors like textiles, seafood, leather, etc. have also been given some relief. In short, the 9th consecutive budget presented by Nirmala Sitharaman, which in itself is a record. The message was clear and simple. You have to fire up growth and yet at the same time provide adequate cushion from these external factors. Let's bring you the big headlines, what the finance minister had to present in her budget today. Number one, the big capex increase, 9% increase. It's the highest public capital expenditure at over 12 lakh crores. Second, 10,000 crores have been given for a Biopharma Shakti scheme, which has been announced. Pharma is also something that is of concern in the tariff realm. Then the government is also hoping to lower the fiscal deficit. For the current fiscal, it's 4.4% of GDP. Next year, the glide path is 4.3% and eventually 4.2% by the end of the next 3 years. It's a big boost also for labor-intensive sectors. We talked about textiles, footwear, apparel, leather. These are all hit by the Trump tariffs. So there's some significant relief in those sectors as well. 5 university townships are going to be developed along industrial corridors. One big pain point for industry has been the students who graduate currently from vocational training institutes, from colleges, universities, etc., don't have the skill sets that the job market needs. Hopefully these industrial corridors and the university townships around those industrial corridors will solve those problems. Let's listen in to some excerpts from the finance minister's speech today. It was a big budget, a bold budget, and a budget that will put India, make it future ready, ready for the age of artificial intelligence.
Public capital expenditure has increased manifold from 2 lakh crore in 2014-15 to an allocation of 11.2 lakh crore in BE 25-26. In this coming year, that is financial year 2026-27, I propose to increase it to 12.2 lakh crores to continue the momentum. 1.0 expanded India's semiconductor sector capabilities. Building on this, we will launch ISM 2.0, the Electronics Components Manufacturing Scheme, launched in April 2025 with an outlay of 22,919 crores. Already has investment commitments at double the targets. We propose to increase the outlay to 40,000 crores to capitalize on this momentum. To rationalize the customs duty structure for goods imported for personal use, I propose to reduce the tariff rate on all dutiable goods imported for personal use from 20% to 10%. To provide relief to patients, particularly those suffering from cancer, I propose to exempt basic customs duty on 17 drugs or medicines.
Now, it comes in the big geopolitical context of the Trump tariffs, and the budget has sought to blunt some of those tariff threats. It has targeted export growth, particularly in labor-intensive sectors. Export growth has been given a big boost. Domestic manufacturing has been given a boost as well. Some of the measures to try and simplify customs rates as well as customs application, that I think has been given a big fillip. Also to try and reduce red tape, remove powers from the hands of the taxman. Those measures have been taken as well. Specific roadmap to try and minimize dependencies on global supply chains and to cushion global supply chain shocks have been taken by the finance minister as well. There are some duty exemptions as well as incentives on key growth areas that have been mentioned in the finance minister's budget speech. Some of the target sectors are the ones that have been hit by these tariffs, whether it's marine exports, leather, textiles, apparel, even electronics. Also, the ease of personal imports. You heard from the Finance Minister reducing it from 20% to 10% imports meant for personal use. Also, reforms to boost India's global market competitiveness as well. So, how does this offset the Trump tariffs? Well, the capex boost is a big signal that yes, India is investing in the big infrastructure story, no doubt about it. A 9% increase in capital expenditure, and this has only been increasing over the last 10 years, certainly in the last 5 years post-COVID. The allocation has now gone up to 12.2 lakh crores. There are significant duty cuts as well. Tariff rate on personal items has been reduced from 20% to 10% import for personal items. There's also a big export boost. These export sectors have been affected by the Trump tariffs. Duty-free imports have been the import limits, whether it's for seafood processing from 1% to 3%. Duty-free imports have been extended to shoe uppers, which is, of course, in the leather sector, which has also been affected. That has been mentioned in the Finance Minister's speech as well. And a big push for domestic manufacturing, exemption on raw materials for defense aircraft, microwaves, no customs on lithium-ion battery cells, solar glass, critical minerals, container manufacturing, etc. 10,000 crore outlay has been made for shipbuilding and for container manufacturing. Also, significant emphasis on the rare earth corridor from Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu and Kerala, and the announcement of the National Semiconductor Mission 2.0.
साथियों, आज भारत जिस रिफॉर्म एक्सप्रेस पर सवार है, इस बजट से उसे नई ऊर्जा, नई गति मिलेगी। हम जल्द से जल्द दुनिया की तीसरी सबसे बड़ी अर्थव्यवस्था बनना चाहते हैं। साथियों, भारत की कृषि, डेयरी सेक्टर, फिशरीज, इन्हें हमारी सरकार ने हमेशा सर्वोच्च प्राथमिकता दी है। भारत विस्तार एआई, इस टूल से किसानों को उनकी भाषा में जानकारी मिलने से उन्हें बहुत मदद मिलेगी। जो पाथ ब्रेकिंग रिफॉर्म्स किए गए हैं, वो एस्पिरेशन से भरे हुए भारत के साहसिक, टैलेंटेड युवाओं को उड़ने के लिए खुला आसमान देते हैं। साथियों, ये बजट एम्बिशियस भी है और ये बजट देश की एस्पिरेशन को भी एड्रेस करता है।
All right, let's take a look at the big picture of what this budget is seeking to address. I want to go across to two very special guests. The Chief Economic Advisor, Dr. Anant Nageshwaran, is joining us, and Mr. V. Vilnam is the Expenditure Secretary to the Government of India. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for speaking with us. Dr. Nageshwaran, let me start with you first. Obviously, this budget comes in a time and context. There's been global headwinds because of the tariffs. India is clinching these FTAs. How does this budget address those specific concerns, those specific external shocks? How does it cushion our industry, both big and small?
The budget doesn't make a song and dance about the global situation, but is extremely conscious about the global situation, and that is shown in the fact that many areas which are sensitive and important for Indian manufacturing to take off, where we could be held hostage by global supply chain disruptions or countries choosing to weaponize them, the government has prioritized. Whether it is capital equipment for nuclear energy, carbon capture and storage, whether it is aircraft components and parts, or construction infrastructure equipment, rare earth and rare earth magnets, etc., and also chemicals and biopharma ingredients. In many of these areas which are critical, even some could be high-tech, some could be low-tech, that's not the issue, but they are critical and important, and the government has quietly gone about trying to prioritize their manufacturing in India, and also reducing the customs duties on some of the components, intermediate goods that go into these areas, so that the input costs also come down. So I think it addresses two things simultaneously. One is to indigenize the manufacturing and give some thrust to it, and also by lowering input cost, it seeks to neutralize the impact of tariff and position the Indian exports in a competitive manner as well. So these are the two aspects I can think of which indirectly speak to the current global environment.
I do want to speak to you about a couple of things that were announced in the budget today, which again speak to the external headwinds. One is this rare earth corridor that's been announced linking Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, Kerala. You know, how soon do we see this actualized? And of course, linked to that is this new National Semiconductor Mission 2.0. Where are we on that front? And because we've seen this being weaponized, Dr. Nageshwaran, in the last year, couple of years, both on the supply side, you know, post-COVID, we saw the, China plus one friend-shoring strategy that a lot of countries adopted. And now in the last year, we are seeing it on the demand side with Western economies weaponizing trade and tariffs. So speak to us about these two, the rare earth corridor and the Semiconductor Mission 2.0.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they both are critical areas. Semiconductor components, semiconductor manufacturing, Semiconductor Mission 2.0, all these things will play out in terms of the computing power required for diffusion of AI in the economy. And then you look at rare earth corridors. I think again they are critical for auto manufacturing, smartphones, which is India's rising success story in the merchandise export category, etc. And that is why there is a focus there as well, not only in respect of mining but also processing and manufacturing. They come on top of the rare earth mission that was launched last year. So both of them are therefore it is no surprise that they find critical mentions in the budget document today.
I want to get Mr. Vuelnam's thoughts. While the headline numbers when it comes to fiscal deficit at 4.4% of GDP, when it comes to the glide path that's been given eventually to bring it closer to 4% by the end of the decade. But in terms of expenditure, FY27 expenditure is at 53.5 lakh crores. Net tax receipts, though, are only at 28.75 lakh crores. How does the government hope to meet this shortfall? Yes, there is some amount of market borrowing, but on the disinvestment front, for example, while the target is an ambitious 80,000 crores, the government has not really matched its own targets over these last many years. So how is this shortfall going to be met?
Let me start first with the expenditure side. So whatever has been budgeted, these are an outcome of very detailed discussions that the Department of Expenditure has with the different departments, ministries, where the secretaries, the financial advisors and their officers, they all come. We look at the schemes, we look at their programs, we look at the trend of expenditures. So it's a compilation of all their requirements and not really the other way around where we try and reach a particular number. So it's a very realistic expenditure budgeting exercise which happens. Now on the resource side, the tax and non-tax aspects have been explained by the officers concerned. The disinvestment is something which has many elements to it, but I'm confident that in the coming 1 year or so, with the kind of preparations, the kind of groundwork that is happening, they should materialize, and we should be in a position to meet our requirements, and with some bit of borrowing, which we have been doing every year.
But even on the expenditure side, the fuel subsidies, the food subsidies, these are only going on an increasing trend. We're not seeing, despite benign oil prices, global oil prices, we're not seeing that getting reduced at the retail level, nor are we seeing the subsidy bill, whether it is food, fuel, fertilizer, etc., coming down in any substantial way. And add to that, this is just central government spending that I'm talking about. If you look at the state side spending, again, it's only ballooning. At what point does this get curtailed?
On the fertilizer subsidy, yes, it's a huge amount. The numbers are there, but it is also a reflection of the commitment of the government to provide fertilizers to the farmers wherever required. But having said that, how do we optimize it? How do we streamline it? The agri stack, which has reached almost full completion stage, where about 8 crore farmers have been added into the farmers registry with their ID, where the soil health cards have been issued, where the fertilizer sale through the POS, point of sale, and the IFMIS system are all now ready to be integrated, and with that the potential for optimized allocation and utilization of fertilizers and all are something very promising ahead of us. But till that time, the commitment to provide fertilizers as required stand. But with the crude oil prices also stabilizing, there will be some savings. The domestic production capacity also we expect it to be scaled up. It is something that is monitored regularly, and that will also help in reducing the import of urea, bring down the bill a bit. But till that time, yes, the fertilizer expenditure is a big item in our budget. But having said that, I don't think at this point to call that there are ballooning of expenses would be the right word, because one, on the broader number, the fiscal deficit is in the path that has been projected, and we are moving on. And even in the state governments, there is lots of consolidation which is happening, lots of stabilization on the expenditure. So public finances usually are tight, but it's on a path of consolidation.
I do want to come back to the CEA. Sir, the markets have, of course, reacted negatively because of, I guess, sentiment being affected because of the STT on futures and options trade. But beyond that, the concerns around FII and FPI money flowing out of India over the last year, again, how does the budget seek to address those concerns? Because that still seems to be a bit of an issue. Combine that now with what we're seeing, a bit of a crash, I would say, in commodity prices as well, commodity markets and exchange, funds linked to commodities. How does the budget seek to address these concerns?
Okay, first of all, I would like to make a small correction. FII, you have net outflows, but FDI, it's a net inflow. It is still positive. And it is better than in 25-26, wherein we have the data all the way until, I think, until November. I think the number is positive or even better than last year, the 24-25. So it's not an outflow. It is an inflow that is still not as much as we would like it to be, not because the gross inflows are going down. The gross inflows are coming in. It is the repatriation of profits on investments made even decades earlier, or Indian investors, Indian businesses investing overseas, that is bringing down the net number to a lower level than what we would like it to be. That's to be very precise. Now, how does the budget address this? By making, providing tax certainty, raising the safe harbor limits, and increasing the duration of advanced pricing agreements from 3 years to 5 years, and reducing penalties, etc., converting them into fines, or treating or decriminalizing in multiple, and also providing certainty in several areas. I think this is the way in which the budget is particularly addressing the concerns of investors in general. But more importantly, given that much of the reforms in the last 6 to 8 months have been happening outside the budget, I'm sure these issues can also be addressed outside the budget.
And just very quickly, the market reaction, you think, is just an overreaction to the STT news, and the market will come back, you reckon?
Look, markets, I think, absolutely. I think markets have certain expectations, and when they are not met, the prices that have gone up on the back of those expectations, they have to give back those gains. And STT is applicable on futures and options, if anything, to the extent that it discourages speculative activity in the market. It should put more cash in the hands of investors to be able to deploy them in medium to long-term investments in the stock market. It should be viewed as a stock market positive, actually.
Okay, Dr. Nageshwaran and Mr. Vuelnam, thank you very much for joining us here on News 18. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I also want to go across to a member of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council, Mr. Nilesh Shah. Thank you very much, sir, for speaking with us. First, let's tackle with the big picture in this budget. The capex has been hiked to over 12 lakh crores like never before. It's the highest allocation for capital expenditure ever in any budget. There's a big push on infrastructure, whether it's the freight corridor, whether it is these high-speed rail lines in 7 different parts, etc. So the government seems intent that the way to tackle whatever headwinds the Indian economy might be facing, whether on the consumption side or whether on the external shock factors side. The way to deal with these headwinds is by increasing sort of public investment in big ticket infrastructure projects.
Undoubtedly, this budget has pursued the path of fiscal prudence, which is a positive thing. For the first time, we are seeing capital expenditure proposed at 12,10,000 crore, which is higher than the net market borrowing program of 11,70,000 crore. However, this budget has made many announcements which will require execution. For example, we have announced dedicated freight corridor to link Dankuni and Surat, but we can't allow it to get delayed like our existing dedicated freight corridor. We have also announced infrastructure guarantee fund to provide partial security to infrastructure lender. It should take off, unlike the credit default swap market. So outside of budget, the focus must be on execution of all the good intents announced in the budget.
So, like you said, capital expenditure has been raised to a record level, 12.2 lakh crores for infrastructure building. What do you see as the downstream opportunities for listed construction companies, logistics companies, manufacturing companies? And how do you see that translating? The capex has only been increasing over the last 10 years, particularly in the last 5 years. But how do you see that having a trickle down for companies downstream?
Undoubtedly, the focus of the capex is more towards road, railway, digitization, and I'm sure companies which are engaged in peripheral sector will see the benefit. Today, we are seeing most cement companies saying that their stocks are about of 1.5 to 2 days. We have also started seeing steel companies saying that they have increased the prices. Auto demand is also fairly strong. So there is a part of economy which is doing well, whereas there are other parts of economy which aren't doing well. In this kind of environment, it is important to maintain positive momentum, and increasing budgetary spending on capex to 12.10 lakh crore will be positive as private investment has remained subdued.
I also do want to ask you about the markets, because there are a couple of things that happened. I'll come to STT in 1 second, but both long-term and short-term capital gains tax, there was an expectation in the market that some of that might be changed. Maybe, it'll be rationalized a little better, but there's been no change to both STCG and LTCG. One thing, though, that has changed is how the government will tax share buybacks, particularly by promoters, owners, etc. How do you see that change? Is it net positive or is it net negative?
So it's a step in the right direction. There were few promoters who did take advantage of dividend distribution via buyback, as dividend was getting double taxed at the slab rate and buyback was at a capital gains rate tax. Government plugged that loophole by making buyback taxable at the slab rate. It created unnecessary confusion. Now, government has taken a practical approach, dividing buybacks for non-promoters, which will be taxed as capital gain, and for promoters, which will be taxed at a slightly higher rate. So this is a step in the right direction. If people don't take disadvantage out of, people don't make loopholes out of the regulations, then probably government did not have to do this. But this is a game of chess, one move from their side, one move from government side. But I think separating buyback for promoter and non-promoter is a step in the right direction.
And finally,
it will allow
we saw
to buy shares.
The markets, how they responded to the STT being increased both on futures and on options. And, I guess a large part of the fall in the markets today was attributed to the increase in securities transaction tax. Do you think it's temporary and this panic among traders, investors will go away with tomorrow, day after, and there will be renewed interest both among domestic as well as foreign investors because the budget paints a good long-term India story?
So it's always difficult to predict short-term movement. Speculators are obviously worried because of increase in cost. But we all know 9 out of 10 speculators trading in F&O market loses money. The advantage of their losses was HFT's gain, and government is probably considering STT as a sin tax. You are not doing good for your wealth, might as well contribute to the exchequer. Uh, at the end of the day, stocks are slave of earning power. If our earnings is good, if our growth is good, markets will recover.
Okay, Ms. Nilesha, we'll leave it at that. Thank you very much for joining us with your thoughts and perspective. Thank you.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
To promote environmentally sustainable movement of cargo, I propose to 1. Establish new dedicated freight corridors connecting Dankuni in the east to Surat in the west. Operationalize 20 new national waterways over the next 5 years. Starting with National Waterways 5 in Orissa to connect mineral-rich areas of Talcher and Angul and industrial centers like Kalinga Nagar to the ports of Paradeep and Dhamra. Training institutes will be set up as regional centers of excellence for development of required manpower for these waterways. This will benefit youth in the entire stretch of the waterways to train and acquire skills. Further, a ship repair ecosystem
All right, so the opposition has been saying that there isn't anything for whether it is poll-bound states or opposition ruled states, as it were. I want to go across to one of the more articulate faces in the opposition, Congress MP from Thiruvananthapuram, Mr. Shashi Tharoor. Thank you very much, Mr. Tharoor, for speaking with us. Let's talk about Kerala, your home state. You've said there's hardly any mention of Kerala in the budget. There's a lot from rare earth corridors. Kerala is part of the rare earth corridor along with Tamil Nadu and Andhra Pradesh. There is sustainable turtle trails. There's some coconut promotion scheme as well. There seems to be a lot of mention about Kerala, notwithstanding the
Kerala
fact
has
that
actually only been mentioned in the first two, rare earths and the turtle trail. But I don't think you can find us applauding the turtle trail. There's a lot more substance we've been waiting for. After all, for example, for 15 years since the first budget of the BJP, 12 years, I beg your pardon, the BJP talked about giving an aims to Kerala. There's still no mention of doing so. They've announced the creation of All India Institutes of Ayurveda. They haven't promised one to Kerala, even though Kerala, more than any other part of India, has kept Ayurveda alive and flourishing. There's a complete neglect on the railway front, where they've announced 7 new high-speed rail corridors like Mumbai, Pune, Delhi, Varanasi. But Kerala had a proposal pending for years for a high-speed rapid transit line within the state, which the centre has not so far funded. They talked about port development, but our big, dramatically successful new container terminal port in Vizhinjam, near Thiruvananthapuram in my constituency, was not mentioned at all. We need money for massive railroad connectivity if you're going to be an effective transshipment hub, and there has been no special central package for last-minute connectivity mentioned, unlike, for example, the specific focus given to ports in other regions. Previous budgets favored Gift City, ports in Gujarat, Maharashtra, nothing again for Vizhinjam, whereas connectivity from Vizhinjam ought to be a national priority. Instead, we have a strategic failure. Coastal protection, nothing at all. I'm not finished. We're losing Indian territory to the sea every year. Bharat Mata's soil is going down the drain. If it had gone to China, we'd be screaming for a national defense mobilization. The sea is taking away our land, and the government can't be bothered. They say it's a state's problem. The state says they haven't got enough money. Centre can't be bothered. And the result is our coast is ignored. We've got a serious fiscal crisis in Kerala. The centre is indifferent to our pain. We have only 1.93% allocations from the central tax pool. It used to be 3.93 under UPA just 10 years ago. We're really in bad shape in Kerala. And across the board, you mentioned coconuts and cashews and so on.
Correct.
Kerala is not specified there. I mean, we're assuming we will benefit since we are the largest coconut producing state. Even the name Kerala comes from the coconut tree. But we'd like to see some specifics telling us what Kerala is going to get. We can't just live on assumptions that we're going to get it because it's about coconuts. How much are we going to get and for what exactly? Handlooms. We have our handloom industry that's in crisis. No mention of Kerala there. So one thing after another, I'm afraid. It's a budget for an invisible Kerala. We talked about incredible Kerala, incredible India, God's own country. We're invisible Kerala. We're certainly not this government's own country.
But Mr. Tharoor, I want
to
talk about the rare earth corridor because it's a huge thing. I mean, we've seen how China has weaponized rare earths, used it as leverage during trade negotiations and so on. And it's been a known fact that, the beaches of Kerala are rich in monazite, in thorium, and Kerala is one part of this newly announced rare earth corridor. Surely, as an MP from there, you should welcome that.
Not just as an MP, I called for this. I've published an article pointing to the richness of rare earths in Kerala and demanding that we should start a serious scheme. So, of course, I welcome it. But, I mean, it's all very well to welcome one thing. And by the way, this is 15 years from realization. It's not a short-term thing. Our dependence on rare earths from abroad are going to continue because it'll take 15 years before you do the mining, the setting up of the infrastructure for this rare earth corridor, and start doing the processing before we can actually use the rare earths. So it's a great thing. One can say better late than never. And as something I have advocated as an MP in my own columns. But having said that, sure, let me say I'm happy to applaud one thing while bemoaning the lack of progress in so much else.
You did also talk about agriculture and fisheries. We mentioned there's now going to be a national coconut promotion scheme. Kerala is the biggest producer of coconut. So is it is the biggest producer of cashew nuts as well. So there's going to be a national cashew nut mission. Even in marine and fisheries, zero duty on fish that's caught in the exclusive economic zones. Yours is a coastal constituency. This is something that would matter to your constituents.
Yes, indeed. In fact, at the same time, we need some assistance to enable our fisher folk who are mainly living below the poverty line and not running around in gigantic trawlers with ice boxes and so on to catch fish on the high seas and export them. I mean, I'm afraid we are looking still at much of the fishing community living in a subsistence economy. If we can give them assistance, subsidies to actually develop the capacity to do all of this, to take advantage of such schemes, that'll be fine. Otherwise, it'll just be the big corporates or the big richer trawler companies that'll come in and take advantage of the scheme. I live with the reality of the experiences of the coastal fishermen day after day. They are not exactly ripe to benefit from these larger schemes. But yes, let's help them. And if the government can extend its blue economy concept to helping the simple, ordinary fishermen, the machwara of yore, and actually giving them an opportunity to become 21st century fisher people, we might indeed boost our fishing exports through this budget provision.
You also mentioned about center-state relations. Today, the finance minister mentioned in a speech that the center has gone by the recommendation of the finance commission. 41% has been devolved to the states. So
that was exactly what it was last time, and we already complained about it last time. So our complaints have not been heeded. The fact is, it's just 10 years ago, we were 3.93% of the central pool. We're now 1.93. That's a phenomenal drop. And Kerala is already in unsustainable levels of debt. It's spending a colossal, the majority of its budget goes on just two things, debt servicing and pensions. So how on earth can we promote development in our state? We are the invisible engine of the Indian economy, sending remittances in largest numbers to the country and boosting tourism. And yet we're missing from the budget priorities of the finance minister. It really is invisible Kerala here.
One final word, and this is the big picture. The budget came at a time when there is external shocks because of the Trump tariffs. There is a supply side shocks because of China. Don't you think this budget has given sort of strategic direction when it comes to AI, rare earths, semiconductors, etc., the big picture?
No, those are necessary, but they're not the whole story. For example, when we're giving an exemption for customs duties for drugs, but you're overlooking the fact that we're already importing over 70% of our active pharmaceutical ingredients in order to manufacture drugs, even the drugs, the generics that make us famous around the world as a pharmacy to the world. What are we doing about reducing dependence rather than facilitating more imports? You reduce customs duty in order to promote more imports. Is that the wisest way to go? You're talking about the big picture, Zaka. There's got to be a vision that accords with the principle of Atmanirbhar Bharat. Where is that self-reliance when you're actually promoting policies that are enhancing your dependence on China? That really worries me too.
Okay, Mr. Shashi Tharoor, thank you very much for joining us. I want to go across to Mr. Jayant Sinha, former Minister of State in the Ministry of Finance. Thank you very much, Mr. Sinha, for speaking with us. I want your first big reaction, a comment on the budget. Clearly, it comes at a time when there are very big external shocks, the Trump tariff threats, the China supply side shocks. There are big political risk factors as well. Does the budget send out an intent to insulate the economy from these external shocks and at the same time power the India story on?
The short answer is yes. This is an excellent budget because it positions India as a safe haven in a very turbulent world. We all know what is happening with respect to the global trading order. It is, as Mark Carney said, facing rupture. We know what's happening with climate change, which is creating these disruptive effects across all countries with extreme weather, heat waves, all of these things happening right now. Artificial intelligence and all of these frontier technologies also are major disruptors. And this entire scenario is actually suiting India because with our political stability, with our rock solid economy, and with the demographic advantage that we have, everybody around the world is looking at India as a beacon of stability and growth. And this budget really enables us to demonstrate that once again, that we are following through on our commitments, that we are supporting the important growth industries, and we are bringing down the barriers so that we can trade freely and efficiently with the rest of the world.
So, so far in the last 10 years of the Modi government, one of the standing features has been the increase in public capex or capital expenditure. This budget, it's for the first time above 12 lakh crores. But now are you also seeing sort of strategic direction being given to new age economy areas? So there was a mention about the rare earth corridors, the semiconductor mission 2.0, the grave challenges that we've seen in the trading arena globally over the last year. Do you think this budget is preparing India for the economy of the future?
Right. So the very important priorities that the Honorable Prime Minister has articulated are those of Viksit Bharat and Atmanirbhar Bharat. So if we are going to develop, we are going to develop because we're going to improve our productiveness, we're going to improve our competitiveness, and we'll do that by enhancing the skills and capabilities of our people. Those were two of the kartavyas that she said. And of course, the third one was inclusiveness, to bring everybody into the Vikas Yatra, the growth journey. So Viksit Bharat, by pursuing these priorities, and at the same time, Atmanirbharta. We know that countries are using economic choke points, whether it is critical minerals, whether it is semiconductor chips, whether it is capital. These are the kind of economic choke points that are being used to actually create leverage, in sort of the trade negotiations and economic discussions that various countries are having with each other. Therefore, under those circumstances, to pursue development, to pursue growth at the same time as we are pursuing Atmanirbharta is really, really vitally important. And that's in fact what we're doing. What you saw in the budget were important initiatives for some of the very crucial choke points that we are confronting. For example, critical minerals, for example, semiconductors, as well as in various areas of sustainability, such as batteries and solar panels. So in all of these different areas, we are building up our Atmanirbharta, our strategic autonomy, and building a resilient economy as a result of that.
One final word in terms of, the market reaction. Obviously, the Sensex has ended over 1,000 points down. The markets have reacted negatively. A lot of sentiment around the STTs being increased for both futures and options. But beyond that, there was also a lot of concern regarding net outflows of both FPIs and FIIs. How does the budget address those specific concerns?
Again, the budget focuses on the long term and what it will take for India to maintain a stable growth trajectory. And ultimately, that's what markets like as well. We will, of course, have short-term fluctuations like we've had today because of STT. And that, obviously is something that markets will ultimately take in their stride. But most importantly, what investors are looking for is earnings growth, They're looking for stable macroeconomic parameters because those are the ones that impact interest rates, inflation, and exchange rates. And in both those counts, earnings growth as well as stable macroeconomic parameters, the budget and the Honorable Prime Minister and Finance Minister have delivered very, very well.
All right, Mr. Jayant Sinha, former Minister of State and the Minister of Finance, thank you very much for joining us here on CNN News 18. So the markets have reacted negatively. The Sensex ended the day over 1,000 points down. In fact, it was the second worst performance of the Sensex on a budget day, second only to the COVID year 2020, when, of course, the whole world had been upended. So markets closing out the day more than 1% down, in fact, close to 1.5% down. We'll talk about that and a little more with Radhika Gupta. She's MD and CEO of Edelweiss Mutual Fund. So it's, like I said, the markets have reacted very negatively. The Sensex has ended over 1,000 points down. The Nifty also, again, almost 500 points down. Is it just on the back of the STT, the Securities Transaction Tax, being increased on both futures and options, or is it also because of some unmet objectives or unmet expectations from the market when it comes to long-term capital gains tax or short-term capital gains tax? Why do you think the markets have reacted the way they did today?
Well, I think the reaction is a little bit incomplete because it's a Sunday and, you don't have an FII reaction which will come in tomorrow. It's also, if you look at the segments of the market that really reacted badly, one was capital market stocks, which is well understood because of STT. The second is all your commodity linked exchanges, metal stocks, etc. That I think is a bit unrelated because of your Friday moves in gold and silver. I think, part of it is that there were a lot of expectations from capital markets going into the budget. And this one came as a little bit of a surprise. So I think capital markets have reacted negatively. If you look from an economy point of view, actually, it's not so bad. I think the fiscal deficit numbers are quite okay. The market would have liked those. And the capex and defense outlay is actually probably a little bit better than expected. Something else that could have.
And welcome to this broadcast where we're getting a big piece of breaking news that's coming in. Pakistan will participate in the T20 World Cup, but Pakistan has announced the boycott of the Pakistan-India match on the 15th of February. Top government sources say this is nothing but Pakistan politicizing cricket. Pakistan is protecting its tournament participation and revenues. The Indian side says it is not affected by the boycott as it will hardly change anything on the ground. India is focused on performance and security and not Pakistan's internal calculations. In fact, a response is also coming in from Anurag Thakur on this entire matter. Listen in.
अभी नतीजा ये भी आया कि हमने पाकिस्तान की टीम को आज मैच हराया है, तो पाकिस्तान को पता है कि आज हमारी अंडर 19 की टीम ने हरा दिया, सेमीफाइनल से बाहर कर दिया, तो आगे जो वर्ल्ड कप होने वाला है उसमें भी भारत पाकिस्तान को फिर धूल चटाएगा, तो उन्होंने पहले ही हार मान ली है। तो हार से बचकर भागने के लिए पाकिस्तान खेलना नहीं चाहता, ये पाकिस्तान की पुरानी आदत होगी। अब वो हारना नहीं चाहता, खेल के मैदान में आना ही नहीं चाहता है।
So Pakistan has taken this decision in solidarity with Bangladesh to boycott the match with India. Also, what we are learning is that this decision came after a meeting between the PCB chief Mohsin Naqvi and Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif. That is the big development that's coming in, a stunner ahead of that face-off between India and Pakistan on the 15th of February, where Pakistan will now boycott that match. I'm joined by my colleague Shivani Gupta on the broadcast. Shivani, decode the reverberations in the cricket circles of India. It's a huge twister that's coming in ahead of that crucial match.
Yes, first of all, let me just say that this is an unprecedented situation. Despite a lot of hostilities between India and Pakistan since independence, multiple wars being fought, there has never been a situation that India and Pakistan have refused to play against each other in a World Cup encounter. It has never happened in a 50-over World Cup and in a T20 World Cup. In fact, despite even recent last 2 decade, 25-year tensions, including Kargil War, the Mumbai terror attacks, etc., cricket matches, particularly marquee World Cup matches, have always gone ahead between India and Pakistan. So this is an unprecedented situation. The first few reactions that are coming in from, let's say, the Indian fraternity are a little bit of little bit of the fact that this is on expected lines. Many expected that Pakistan will try to do something, given that they've been threatening to either boycott the event itself or boycott again the match against India. They had been goading even Bangladesh to not come to India and play its matches in India, because of which that whole fiasco played out where Bangladesh had to be booted out of the World Cup. But there is also a little bit of a stunned silence as far as the Indian community is concerned, precisely for the reason that I mentioned, that never in the past has this happened. Even when, for example, during Kargil War, right after Kargil War, or during in 1999, India and Pakistan played World Cup encounter. It also happens very, very rarely that teams forfeit a World Cup match. It has happened because of security concerns. In 1996, teams refused to play it in Sri Lanka. In 2003, when the World Cup was in South Africa, there were some teams that were refusing to play in Zimbabwe or Kenya. But since then, I don't think there has been an occasion where a team has forfeited a World Cup match. The way these World Cup tournaments are formulated, you have to win 2 matches to qualify for the next stage, and nobody likes to take it for granted or forfeit points. So what happens from here on? Pakistan will obviously naturally forfeit points. They were in the group with India, along with very, very small minnow countries. So they were expected to qualify from this group. I think they have taken that into account to feel that okay, their qualification might not be affected too much, even if they forfeit the points against India. So they will forfeit the points, but I suspect that because they aren't really giving a very good reason as to why they are boycotting the match against India. It seems to be a political reason more than anything else, because their match is already not under a security cloud. It is being played in Sri Lanka, so it's not security concerns, which is the only legit concern that the ICC accepts if a government refuses to travel to a certain country. That is not the case here. Right? So I think ICC will look at certain financial penalties as far as the PCB is concerned. They might also take a very grim view of this situation, and Pakistan, the PCB, might face some, sanction type, actions from the ICC after the World Cup as well, because the ICC will not look at this very kindly. A hybrid model has been accommodated because Pakistan didn't want to travel to India, although they did travel to India in 2023. They have traveled in 2016 for the World Cup editions. But because of the heightened tensions post Operation Sindoor, they took this call. A hybrid model was accommodated where their matches are being held in Sri Lanka. And still, if they go on to forfeit the match versus India, the ICC will not take this very, very kindly.
Right. Before we get to Vineet, we're also getting a reaction coming in from the BCCI. The BCCI is awaiting official communication. BCCI Secretary has spoken to CNN News 18. Saikia has said that no such information about Pakistan boycotting this match has been received by the BCCI. Listening to that reaction coming in from the BCCI Secretary to CNN News 18, we've got that reaction. But before we get to that, right, let's listen into what the BCCI Secretary had to say.
सर मैं आपको कॉल कर रहा हूं क्योंकि अभी पाकिस्तान का ऑफिशियल स्टेटमेंट आया है। वो कह रहे हैं कि बॉयकॉट नहीं कर रहे हैं, लेकिन इंडिया पाकिस्तान का मैच हम नहीं खेलेंगे।
Right at this moment, I cannot make any comment till the moment I receive the official intimation.
एक चीज और मैं पूछूंगा, अगर पाकिस्तान इंडिया पाकिस्तान का मैच बॉयकॉट कर रहा है क्योंकि पिछले 1 साल में ये अधिकतर मैच हारे हैं, आपको ऐसा भी लगता है कि ये डर के भी नहीं खेल रहे हैं?
Right at this moment, it will not be right for me to pass any comment on this issue. The outcome of match can be anything, but the thing is that once we get the information, then we'll give our official statement on this development.
Right, so the BCCI Secretary is saying that they have not been intimated about this so far. Vineet, I want to come to you on this. Pakistan citing political and regional sensitivities behind this boycott. The call was taken after a meeting with the government reviewing the wider diplomatic fallout. But we also know that the India versus Pakistan clash has a lot of money riding on it. Clearly, India is pretty much putting up a brave face when it comes to this clash, when it comes to the dynamics surrounding the sponsors. Clearly, Pakistan will also suffer huge if this match doesn't go forward.
Well, it's a thing that Pakistan have done to question ICC, the authority. Look, India-Pakistan, as you mentioned, is the big revenue churner in terms of ICC tournament. So it is kind of a dig at ICC, trying to target them from Pakistan side. And as Shivani was mentioning, they are just boycotting this one game. But then again, there is no strong grounds. As Shivani had mentioned, there are past instances where teams have not travel to a certain country because of security reasons or political security reasons. But here, the security is not an issue. They are playing on a high. They are not playing in India. They are playing in Sri Lanka. They were accommodated. So it is there Pakistan's way of trying to take a dig at ICC and also to hit where it would hit them bad. That is the India-Pakistan revenue. But mind you, because there is no valid reason as such in terms of they are politicizing this issue, they're saying they are standing in solidarity with Bangladesh, and that is the reason why they are boycotting this tournament. You have boycotting this particular match and not the tournament. You have to understand that if you had to stand by and show your solidarity to Bangladesh, might as well come out of the tournament completely, but that has not been the case. So Pakistan also understands that they are trying to save their revenue, their share of revenue from the tournament, but trying to take a political stand. ICC will not be taking lightly on this issue, because ICC past instances have been there when there is the government related or government influence on cricketing decisions. ICC takes strong decisions on that. Zimbabwe were for a brief while banned because of government intervention. So did Sri Lanka for a while. So ICC could take that route if this is something that Pakistan relays to ICC. Right now, it is only a tweet from the Pakistan government that Mohsin Naqvi and the Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif had a meeting. No official communication has been done to the ICC and to the BCCI, as we spoke to Devjit Saikia a short while back. So it's very interesting to see how ICC reacts, because ICC would be will not be taking it very lightly, and there would be sanctions. Yes, Pakistan can forfeit the India game. They were going to lose that game. Namibia and USA are the other two teams in the group, so they would most likely qualify for the next game. Also, the point in contention here would be what if there is an India-Pakistan game 1 second, let's say a semi-final or the final. Will Pakistan go ahead and boycott that also, or this is just the one game that they are talking about? No clarification as yet, but yeah, it is a major development.
Right, and I'm also joined by Payal Mehta on the broadcast. So Payal, clearly the BCCI secretary is still saying that we have to be intimated about this decision by the PCB. But clearly Anurag Thakur coming out swinging against Pakistan. What more are you learning from your sources?
Well, to understand, this is purely a political decision to say this, because, the communication is coming from the Pakistani government and not from the PCB. So that tells you what is there as far as Pakistan is really concerned. Pakistan has been playing these dirty games all along. They understand that they were thrashed by India in the Asia Cup, the cup that they are considered to be Asia Cup chores also right now, because they haven't returned the trophy to the Indian side. That is something which has also been there. And plus, Shivani and Vineet can both correct me if I'm wrong, but you can't have your whims and fancies when you play a particular multilateral tournament. You can't say, I want to play with A side, don't want to play with B side. That is something which the ICC will certainly not settle for. And the ICC says that they are there to protect the spirit of the game. They're not going to be embroiled in any political rivalry that nations have with each other. The situation in Bangladesh was different, and Bangladesh, having the consequences, has decided to accept the consequences. Can Pakistan really afford to have those consequences happen in place? Pakistan is in any case, a broke nation. They require the money more than anybody else that is done. And why did they not have this moral ground when they were playing Asia Cup? It's probably the embarrassment that they want to really save of their own people, because they know their team is going to be thrashed by India again. So that's why all these drama, which is currently out as well, purely a political decision, once again, makes you believe that nothing is genuine in Pakistan. It's just the army rule which actually overrules everything. Even so that Mohsin Naqvi, when he initially had a meeting with Shahbaz Sharif, he in fact was told, because he came out and tweeted this as meeting our Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. So that was something also which he was really very, very badly trolled for as well. And Mohsin Naqvi, mind you, is playing the role of three different roles right now. He's also the Interior Minister of Pakistan, not to forget just the PCB chief. So obviously, these are the consequences that Pakistan will have to really face. But I've been given to understand that there's been no official communication so far with the ICC. We'll have to just wait and see when the communication come and what sanctions are put on Pakistan. Like I said, it's a broke nation and they'll have consequences to make.
Absolutely. We'll have to wait and see what both the BCCI and the ICC have to say about this. But this is an unprecedented twister ahead of the T20 clash in Sri Lanka. Vineet, Shivani and Payal, thank you for joining us on the broadcast. We will continue to track all those developments coming in. For now, quick break. More news and updates on the other side.
This is News 18 Network. India's India's largest news network.
To promote environmentally sustainable movement of cargo, I propose to 1. Establish new dedicated freight corridors connecting Dankuni in the east to Surat in the west. Operationalize 20 new national waterways over the next 5 years. Starting with National Waterways 5 in Orissa to connect mineral-rich areas of Talcher and Angul and industrial centers like Kalinga Nagar to the ports of Paradeep and Dhamra. Train of required manpower for these waterways. This will benefit youth in the entire stretch of the waterways to train and acquire skills. Further, a ship repair ecosystem catering to inland waterways will also be set up at Varanasi and Patna. And C, launch a coast.
We've got the best panelists in the business, the best analysts here.
What is the strategic vision for Bharat going forward? Is there a plan? Are we working to it?
I think industry is going in with measured expectations.
Theme of this budget will be resilience, very turbulent times.
Before COVID, 17.8%. Post-COVID now in 23-24, 10.2%.
My appeal to the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister would be, please focus on ease of business.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
To promote environmentally sustainable movement of cargo, I propose to 1. Establish new dedicated freight corridors connecting Dankuni in the east to Surat in the west. Operationalize 20 new national waterways over the next 5 years. Starting with National Waterways 5 in Orissa to connect mineral-rich areas of Talcher and Angul and industrial centers like Kalinga Nagar to the ports of Paradeep and Dhamra. Training institutes will be set up as regional centers of excellence for development of required manpower for these waterways. This will benefit youth in the entire stretch of the waterways to train and acquire skills. Further, a ship repair ecosystem catering to inland waterways will also be set up at
Viewers, let me tell you, the Modi government has framed this budget at a time when the global economy is shaky. Uncertainty in the world markets and disruptions triggered by Donald Trump's policies have clearly influenced the finance minister's thinking. The priority this year is simple. Make sure India's economy stays strong and stable even if global conditions worsen. That caution shows up clearly in the numbers, and you can see these numbers on your screens, viewers. There they are. The government plans to keep its fiscal deficit essentially how much it borrows, 4.3% of GDP. This signals a focus on financial discipline and a long-term goal of bringing overall government debt down. Also, of course, while debt is still high at about 55.6% of GDP, this year the direction is towards gradual reduction. Spending on social welfare has also been carefully planned. Farmers and job creation receive the largest share of government funds, indicating that the focus remains on livelihoods and income support for ordinary citizens. At the same time, the government has not pulled back on building the economy for the future. It has allocated 12.2 trillion for capital expenditure, money meant for infrastructure like roads, railways and public assets. even though private companies are slowly starting to invest more, the government continues to lead the investment push, making it important where and how this money is spent. And you can see the takeaways. They're all here. The 7 high-speed rail infra corridors, the massive attempt at really unearthing rare earths, all of that, viewers, is geared towards ensuring that there's resilience and there is growth. Thank you, Mr. Vaishnav, for speaking to us.